Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Hello, hello, hello. It's saying I am live. Now, I don't know if this is a barefaced lie or if it's actually true. So, as usual, I want confirmation that you can see and hear me. Confirmation. I'm waiting. I can wait all day. Can see and hear. Splendid, 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 splendid. Well, I hope you are all well. Unfortunately, my partner in crime, Crimson, is not here today. She is a poor little chicken, so is resting up. So I wish her a speedy recovery. So today, you're stuck with just me. And I have to apologize. Don't look too closely at my face. If you have this on a big screen, make it smaller so you can't see my poorly eyes. They're all red and horrid. Don't look at me. Okay. A proper ramble this evening then. Well, you mean the way I'll completely stop and start and stop and start and yeah. Well, actually, before we carry on, we have a Blue Lobster moment. Bluester has initiated me putting a Blue Lobster on my head because we have a new channel member. Woohoo! Level 1 Discord Blue Lobster. I don't know if that was quick enough for anyone to screen grab. And remember, the Red Lobster if anyone signs up to level 2 during the stream. Oh, yes. What more reason could you possibly want? Oh, gotta move the keyboard. I've been attacked by a cat. Often when streaming, Lemmy won't come because if Crimson is here, it means the dogs are here, which means she keeps herself to herself. So it doesn't come out. But no such issue this evening. Right, the other thing, before I forget, because I will forget, big shout out to Chris Griggs, who super chatted just after the end of the live stream last week. It popped up just after I'd finished. Obviously, it takes a moment for these things to come through. So big thank you, Chris. It's much appreciated. Yeah, thank you once again. Oh no, my tempting people with the lobster appears to have worked. All right, no, I can't. I need to keep the lobster out of my eyes. I don't want to contaminate the lobster for future use. I wish I knew where this weird tradition of me putting a lobster on my face came from. Oh, wow, we got another super chat. That's lobster time. Eldar Blog, cola sponsor. If they made an orc cola, what flavor would it be? Mushroom. Thank you very much, sir. Still no sponsorship deal. What diet beverage wouldn't want me advertising it? Oh, there's more. Chapter Master Lexicus, Shameless Paul Fest 2 plug, 3 tickets remaining. Wow, yes, well, wow. So, Paul Fest on the something of March, I have to check. On the something of March, our Discord community, this is self-organized, our Discord community are getting together on the 26th of March at tabletop events in Belper to chill out, throw dice, have fun. And I will be there as guest appearance, randomly wandering around, taking selfies with people and going, oh, your models look so cool. What's going on here then? Yeah, we did one in October, and it was great fun. Yeah, I can see someone saying they're getting lags. Well, you get lags in my brain because I have to do the reading and. So the Blue Lobster doesn't live there; it lives over here, ready for anyone else joining Channel 1, Level 1 channel memberships. Okay, so usual format. The first few minutes of my inane drivel done. Bit of an overview of what I've been doing over the last week, mostly sticking to hobby stuff. Then the subject for the ramble, which today is Armour is Dead, and then some questions at the end. Now, because I'm doing the question, there might be a bit more blurring of the questions and the rambling because this time. Okay, so what have I been doing this last week? Well, hobby-wise, I filmed on Saturday Gene Stealer Cults and Admech. 1,000 points aside. And that went up in the members lounge on Sunday. So that's live now for level 2 channel members. Grandillo, super chat. Can't attend Porfest, unfortunately, but here's my contribution to the Coke Sponsor Fund. You are a true gent, I assume, or lady. You're a true noble soul, sir or madam, or however you self-identify. Thank you very much. Yeah, another one. So, Master Lexicus is shamelessly plugging Moog's Little Figures, which is an awesome painting tutorial and rambling site on the YouTubes. Check him out. It's good painting watching and good ramble fodder. I don't know if anyone knows how to put a link to Moog's Little Figures in the chat. If they do, please do. Okay, so I filmed that on Saturday, and none of the... So there were two notoriously complicated codices, and I was using them both against each other. And I have to say, it took a long time, but I didn't find anything that was overly complex once I picked the couple of things that I was going to focus on. And focused on them. One thing I did that did help, it helped me, was out of the stack of about 30 stratagems that I could use, was I dealt them out into what phase they could be used in. So in each phase, I could do a quick reference, right? We're now in the charge phase. Anything in this deck? No. Anything in that deck? No. Oh, yes, they can do this. That helped. That helped. So it did take a while. But it was one of the most fun games I have played in quite a while. There were some real hero moments, some real moments, and it just sang with narrative. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I could feel the story on the battlefield, which, you know, is my jam. So it's my jam. So yeah, that was So that was good. So that went up on Sunday. On Monday, conversely, a battle report that I filmed a long time ago that just has taken quite a while to get around to the schedule went up. AOS battle report with Moog, and we played Maggot Kid of Nurgle versus Sylvaneth. Also good fun. I can't remember much about it other than it ended up being 3 hours long, and there was an inadvertent F-bomb in there somewhere that took me ages to edit out. I broke my no editing rule and edited it out. Good fun. It was good fun. I've been painting Tau to get ready for filming some Tau battle reports. I'm going to do some combat patrols, building a 500 point RMA, and I've been using some different painting techniques, and the video for that is a work in progress. There will be a video, but most of my painting I do with dry brushing, and I've not dry brushed these because I tried dry brushing Tau about 15 years ago, and it was a hideous disaster. So I decided, no, I'm going to try and do it without dry brushing and with minimal highlighting, which is a challenge. But yeah, they're in progress. I'm enjoying those. I've really got my second unit finished. Depending on how the job hunting goes this week, I may get those ready for the release of the weekend, or it may come afterwards. Don't know yet. Job hunting is going all right. I've had a few calls with agents. I'm no longer panicking like I was this time last week, which is all good. which is all good. I've got a few AOS games coming up over the next few weeks, and so it's Tau. Then I've got a bunch of Necron games close together, for which I need to try and paint more of my Necron buildings, because it's meant to be set in a tomb world and it's going to look pretty shabby on a 6-foot table with like one building on there. So I'm going to need some improvisation and to paint more. Then after that, I'm moving on to some AOS stuff. I'm not exactly sure what yet, but I've got a bunch of games coming up middle of Feb. But yeah, I'm itching to paint those, and I'm like, but I gotta do this, but I'm itching to paint those, but I gotta do this, but I'm itching to paint those. So, Armour is dead. Apart from chitinous carapace, all Armour is dead to start with. Or wasn't it? It cannot be dead if it was never alive. I digress. Paul Gray, shameless plug for the Crimson Ribbon narrative event. So looking forward to playing in it. Okay, we need to getting spammers. Remember, hide user. Be gone. Have I just hidden the wrong person? No. Thankfully. I thought I got rid of the wrong person then. So the Crimson Ribbon is the name of the narrative event that I'm going to be running in June at tabletop events in Belper. And tickets go on sale soon. In fact, they go on sale in about a week. And they will be available to channel members first and foremost. If they don't sell out, then I'll see what I do next. But it's meant to be as accurate a representation of a chaos invasion of an imperial world and a imperial response as possible. So the imperial task force should consist of lots of guard, some space marines, maybe a bit of something else, maybe a detachment of Imperial Knights. But I won't go into a huge amount of detail on that today. Because the tickets aren't available yet. So don't want to overdo that. Right, okay. Sorry, Moog. Yes, I am. I'm stealing your job, and there's another one there, so I'll leave that one for you. Quite what vmdonug means, I don't know. And do you know what? I don't want to know. If it means something weird, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. So, Armour is dead. So I'm going to go on a bit of a ramble with this, and I'll end on Armour is dead, but you should see where I'm going, I think. So, Armour through the ages. So, second edition, Armour was the Armour Save Modifier mechanic, whereby you had a base Armour Save, and based on the weapon you're attacked with, it could modify your Armour Save. In the same way that we know now, if you've got a 3+ save and someone hits you with a -2 weapon, your save becomes 5+. There were a few differences there to now. For example, Terminator armor, you took your save on 2d6. So it was a 3+ save on 2d6. So someone hit you with a -1 weapon, you still needed to get a total of 4 on 2 dice. Terminator armor was great. That was before invulnerable saves were a thing. Yes, a little slow, but that never bothered me. Never bothered me. It always felt like they were just semi-invulnerable tanks, just shrugging off the minuscule amount of fire that was that was going at them. And one of the things in second ed that was quite different to what we have today is that armor saves were your armor save modifier was a direct result of your strength. So strength 4 had -1, strength 5 had -2, strength 6 had -3, etc. 7 -4, 8 -5, 9 -6, etc. So -6. So you could still get hit in the face with a las cannon. If you were wearing power armor, no, not a chance. But if you were wearing Terminator armor, -6. So you'd need to get 9 on 2d6, which is about a 1 in 3 chance. But what it meant was, as the vast majority of weapons were a base of -4, that power armor really didn't do very much, because it didn't do very much. But back in those days, your unit of 10 Marines cost you 350 points. So your armor going down to a 4+ was a big deal. And that would happen when you got shot by most things, because most things were strength 4. And there was when they moved to 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th edition, which was effectively one edition with various tweaks as it went along, the concept was replaced with Armour Penetration. So you either got your full armor save, or you didn't get it at all. and depending on the weapon shooting at you, depended on whether or not you got your armor save. So if you had if you had a 3+ save, if the weapon that shot at you was AP 3, you would lose your armor save. If it was AP 2, you'd lose your armor save because 2 is better than 3, 1, and so on. If you were hit by an AP 4 weapon that doesn't beat your armor, you just get your armor save. And what that did was it meant that units with very light armor, like guardsmen wearing flak armor, which was a 5+ save, almost never got to roll an armor save because bolters, for example, were AP 5. So a bolter would just blow straight through flak armor, which, narratively speaking, I think it should do. But that's just me. You had some units in the middle, like Aspect Warriors and Fire Warriors, where they'd get a reasonable save half the time against bolters and lasguns, so on. But heavy bolters, which were AP 4, would punch straight through. So you either sort of got it, and AP 3 weapons was super rare. When I came back to playing in 4th ed, because I missed 3rd ed, I can only recall the battle cannon and the gun that the Tau Vespid fire being AP 3 weapons. I cannot recall any other AP 3 weapons. Of course, there were AP 2 weapons and AP 1 weapons like Plasma and Melter and Las and Las cannons and so on. But it was very uncommon that you got a lot of incoming fire that would just beat your power armor. It was either a tank hunting gun that would obviously punch through a marine, or generally it was bouncing off your marine armor. So people used to talk about mech and gek, marine equivalent and guard equivalent. Yes, Kobe's saying rubrics were AP3. They were. That was more towards the end. That I'm reminiscing on sort of 4th ed. So apologies for that. I should have been more specific. Where was I going with that? Quick, refreshing brain drink. Oh, super chat. A Teutonic Knight. The cover mechanic kind of offset that too. Guardsmen have ammo ignored by bolters, but could get a 5+ or 4+ from terrain or ruins. That is very true. Cover gave you a save that wasn't modified. So, if you hide behind a 2-meter brick wall, then if that took the hit, that took the hit. Which kind of works for bolters, not so much for last cannons, but you could argue that actually it was more likely to be a miss in that scenario. But then you go around why wasn't it -1 to hit? But back in those days, you didn't have to hit modifiers either. You either hit or you didn't. So, brain frag. What it did. Oh, thank you, by the way. I don't know if I actually said, I read it out. I don't know if I said thank you very much. It was very binary. It caused a lot of frustration with some people that Marines or Marine equivalent could either just entirely walk through fire and survive everything, or from the Marines' perspective, a few bad dice rolls and they're all dead. So it made armor a really, really, really big aspect of the game. If your units had armor, you could leave them out in the open. You could walk slowly towards your opponent. You would take fire. You would take attrition. It also meant you really looked out for the really big weapons. So if someone was going to fire a battle cannon at you and put a blast template over the unit, you could potentially lose an entire unit of Marines by taking an unlucky cannon shell hit. So it made you stop and think in some scenarios. And from that point of view, it was quite tactical. If your main threat from advancing was a Defiler with a battle cannon or a Layman Russ with a battle cannon, then you would try your darndest to take that out at range before pushing up the table with your Marine. But event time was very significant. Then we had the change to 8th Ed, where they got rid of the notion of AP and converted over. If you had if you'd been AP4 previously, you were AP -1. If you were AP3, you're AP -2, etc. AP2, you were -3, and so on. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. But one of the things GW used... Am I jumping ahead? Then everything was leveled off with 8th edition, and everything was converted over. So your crack missile, which was AP3 before... oh yeah, crack missiles were AP3, but they were single shot. Your crack missile, which was AP3, now becomes AP -2. So okay, yeah, and there's logic in that from a narrative point of view as well. The certain parts of your armor will be able to take that kind of hit. Your carapace, your shoulder pauldrons, they're going to be strong enough to take a crack missile hit. Your helmet, your gorget, your limbs, not so much. So it sort of represented, in my mind, a what percentage of your body of your armor could successfully take a hit from that kind of thing. And what couldn't. So I like that. That was very good from that point of view. And all those armies were fairly balanced because they were all released in the indexes at the same time. And for about 12 months, the codex releases kept in with that balance reasonably well. And then something, I don't know what it was, and this is where I think the death of armor comes from. Back in the day, in sort of early 8th, and then right back through to sort of 3rd, 4th Ed, there's always been codex balancing going on. There's always been, making sure that points balanced. Sorry, not points. That a codex is in its entirety were roughly equivalent. They all had strengths and weaknesses, but they had some sort of rough equivalence to them. And the way they did that previously was with changes to the points. It was generally understood and accepted that Eldar were toughness 3, so were humans. Orcs were toughness 4, so were Space Marines. Bolters were strength 4. The effective enough to wound an orc. You had, because in the 40k universe there was no innovation, no variation. All the Imperial stuff had stayed the same for 10,000 years. The Eldari stuff was all ancient and had been used since time immemorial, time for a long time, and they didn't have the sort of capacity to design new stuff. The Orcs just made scrap things out of what the Imperium and other cultures had left behind. There was no sort of this is now new. So everyone knew what everything was, and across the Imperium, it's like, okay, it's a heavy bolter. We know what a heavy bolter is. It's a bolter. We know what a bolter is. And the way GW balanced the codices was with the points. So a bolter was a bolter was a bolter. But the cost of it would vary. What we started seeing in 8th onwards was, with all the new stuff that Belisarius Crawl started, I never know whether it's Crawl or the Belisarius that Belisarius started doing. He started doing new things, and kind of from that point, writing it down doesn't help me say it. From that point, there was no sort of standard pattern to stick to for what everything is. Okay, now we can have bolters that are longer range, or we can have bolters that shoot better through armor. Standard bolters are AP -1. And the innovation changed that, and that started to come across all the races now. There's all sorts of new stuff popping up everywhere, and the drive to balance things doesn't feel like it's narrative driven. It feels like it's rules driven. So it's not, we know what a bolter is, therefore a bolter is the same universally, and we adjust the points depending on which codex, its usability, all that stuff. Now it's, this is a weapon. We will decide what the weapon does. And the way the last 12, 18 months they've been balancing things is to increase the AP of many weapons. So rather than the standard being no AP and the good weapons having an AP, the standard is now your weapon has an AP, and a rubbish weapon has no AP. And now there are stratagems and warlord traits and all sorts of things to buff up the AP at different periods. Plus, things have many, many, many more shots. There's a significant difference between a one-shot gun being AP -1, meaning you might kill a Marine. Not now, you do a wound to a Marine. To that gun also being 4 shots and -1, or 6 shots and -1, because it's a I don't know, because I can't use the example I want to. I can't think of another one. Brain's just crashed. I'm having trouble buffering. And I've entirely lost my thread. Where was I? So with the game leans much more towards volume of fire, as well as the various stats. And any statistician will tell you that if you increase the sample size, you reduce the possibility for variation. I won't do the boring details, but if you've got orc bikes firing, is it 10 shots a bike? So you've got 90 shots, then you are going to get much less variation in the outcome than if they all had 1 shot each. With 1 shot in a system where you have 1 shot each, but things have fewer wounds and so on. You're going to see much more variation. It's going to be much more surprise in the dice. They lean away from that now. It's now huge buckets of dice and more AP. Why are you flashing up when I'm talking? How rude. Large buckets of dice, AP, which means that, okay, your armor might still be 4+ or 5+, but that means you're going to save maybe a 30 to 50% of the dice being rolled against you. But even against sort of standard Marines, you can now sort of go, all right, and I'll make that rapid fire 2, or I'll fire twice, or so this is now sort of 30 shots or 40 shots, or whatever. There are all sorts of different stratagems that you can use to do that. All right, and I'm bypassing a chunk of your armor. Right, okay, that means the armor doesn't really do anything. And that's where I sort of reach my assertion that as part of the game mechanic, armor is dead, in so much as it's not the driving factor of what determines whether a unit lives or dies. It's weight of dice. It's weight of dice, because the volume of dice have got so large, and the prevalence of reduced AP is there all the time now. Armor doesn't really do anything. I don't know what you guys think. I have found in many of my games, okay, I've got a good save, but you know what? I've got to make 40 of them. 40, I exaggerate. I've got to make 12 saves. Whereas if you were making 2 or 3, you go, yeah, I'll live through this. But I've got to make so many that the armor's almost irrelevant. In a lot of cases, it's just a step you have to go through. But weight of dice have eliminated it. So that's one of the least coherent rambles I've rambled in quite a while. It's because I've got half an eye on the chat, and it's brain weirding, focus breaking. I don't know if you guys find this. The armor save of I'm finding the armor save of my units is not the determining factor as to whether they live or die now. It's mostly the incoming fire. The incoming fire. Yeah, you can say, oh well, if the fire's, it's the volume of fire. So samurai. I can't. Samurai one day was saying guardsmen even fun to play now. Yeah, I enjoy playing my guard, but their basic gun is so far below the curve. They don't. But equally, so that's an interesting one. So, I go on another ramble. Bolters are the new las guns. So your standard Space Marine bolter, strength 4, no AP. Back a couple of months ago, the narrative of the bolter is described as a depleted uranium round that enters the subject and explodes. And a bolt round in a lot of the books will just disassemble a human equivalent. When the Orc Codex came out and Orcs became toughness 5, the thing that really changed there was that Space Marines now wounded them on a 5. But Guardsmen already wounded them on a 5, because in order for the difference between because the lasgun doesn't double. Because the toughness of the orc doesn't double out the lasgun, it's still winding on a 3. Still winding on a 5. So the change there was actually to bring bolters back down to the level of lasguns. Oh wow, we have an honoured guest in the chat, Mr. Liam Dempsey. Hello, sir. Not you. My Amazon device is trying to talk at me.
I thought I heard my name.
You didn't hear your name. Is your name Liam? I think not. So yeah, so from that point of view, the only thing that really happened there is bolters became the new lasguns. And when every other gun in the game is I say every other, but when universally you start to see in all the new codices the basic weapon that a lot of units have, whether it's a melee weapon or a shooting weapon, it's not normally both, it's normally one or the other, but either the melee weapon or the shooting weapon becomes AP -1. That is it's a step change. And it, as well as their stats increasing, their stats relative to the other stats. My brain isn't working with coherent sentences today. I don't know what's going on. I've not drunk enough of this fabulous beverage. One moment, let's rectify that. And I think the reason this becomes apparent to me is because you take, for example, an orc chopper. An orc chopper now, you should say, oh well, an orc chopper should be able to cut through power armor. Yes, okay. An orc chopper could cut through power armor. A Space Marine is wearing power armor. There is a 30% chance that the orc hefts this lump of metal hard enough so that it will actually go through the ceramite plate. Because the orc is that chuffing strong, and the thing is that heavy and beaten, and for the chopper to go through the armor doesn't need it to be an extra -1. The extra -1 is in there as a game balancing thing, rather than the orc being worth fewer points. If the orc were worth fewer points and the chopper wasn't AP -1, that would. And this is where it becomes apparent to me, because it's all sorts of changes that make the narrative bunny in me a little bit sad. It's like, okay, now I think there was another one. I think it was Eldar Witches have their knives are innately AP -1. Okay, same thing. Do you know? And this is where I'm going off on a bit of a rant now. You can increase things, but the way you increase it can be aligned with the narrative. So I don't know, this isn't a great example because the witches kind of do have something like this, but if that's meant to represent the witches being able to slash at armor seals and those sorts of things, fine, great. Give them a skill that means that on a certain hit roll, they bypass the armor seals. And do you know what? You can make that if you could make whatever that is the exact same statistical probability, so that it has the same game effect, the same balancing effect, but leaves the narrative to feel whole. The two that really, really cry out to me, that make me so sad inside. One are the Dark Eldar Hellions. So they gave the Hellions, was it even a 3+7? I'm gonna have to check this on the app. I want to make sure I get this right before I start whinging about it. Got to make it right. Oh, I'm on Death Guard there. Someone was asking me about Death Guard earlier. Drakari, data sheets, H for Hellions. That's right. That's what they did. So Hellions would, a previous edition, would always get wiped off the face in absolutely no time at all. So they needed to be more durable. Well, Hellions, Hellions are incredibly fast, very difficult to shoot at. They're very small targets. They're highly maneuverable targets. They're difficult to hit. Why not just make them hard? Why not make them harder to hit and then give them some kind of dodge save? If you want them to survive longer, more difficult to hit, and they dodge. So you have an invulnerable save, I don't know, 5+, they dodge out of the way. Why make them toughness 4, because it's basically a half-naked elf on a skateboard, and give them 2 wounds? The game's balanced with that. The narrative isn't. The narrative is, why on earth is this the equivalent of the Primaris Marine? Ooh. And the one in the Orc Codex that just made me so sad was Gretchen going up to toughness 3. Presumably so strength 4 weapons didn't win them on 2s. So a grot that's 2 foot tall is as durable as a human. No, that they were toughness 2 for a reason. That's because a bolter hitting a grot should make it detonate and liberally scatter itself over a wide area. Yeah. Got off a bit random there. Yeah, the armor is dead, I think, is a symptom of the game balancing not being in line with the narrative balancing. Yes, Mr. Old Warhog. Yes. Oh, sir, just one question. If we do happen to tread on a mine, what do we do? Well, standard procedure, Lieutenant, is to jump 40 feet into the air and scatter yourself over a wide area. Got it. Blackadder goes forth, yes. Mr. the Old War Dog picked up on my reference. Right. I'm in danger of just repeating myself now rather than rambling on. Who wants to hit me up with some questions in the chat? Not necessarily to do with what we've just been talking about, what I've been incoherently swaying about. Game balance was really what I was talking about, and the narrative nature or the non-narrative nature of game balance now. Yeah. Now I've put my elbow into a blob of ice cream. You just crawled over some barbed wire, sir. I feel like we should go beyond the toughness only going to 10. Do you know, someone, I can't remember where or who, so I do apologize. Someone said to me the other day, what do you think about the idea of 40k going to D10? I'm like, what? Well, and using a much wider range of differentiation between the units, between the stats. So it's not just, is it a wounds on a 1 or a 2 or whatever. You've got more of a range to make it more variable, and I think that's kind of, James, what you're getting at with the going beyond the toughness only going to 10. So you could say, for the sake of argument, that a human was toughness 4, an orc was toughness 5, a space marine was toughness 6. An orc knob might be toughness 6, a war boss toughness 7. Don't know. It would be more granular, but I don't think there's always an arms race with stats and codices and so on. They've always, the new one has always got to be shinier than the last one. There's only so many ways. There's only so many ways. I don't know what I was talking about. What did my brain just do? You would still get the creep, and it'd be things going up to 5, up to 6, up to 7. So Lobster's just asking there, do you think the ignores AP -1 and -2 mechanic balances it out, or is it just another symptom? I think it's another symptom. I think it's a symptom of that, of saying, do you know what? We don't want these models to be wounded as badly, but we've created an environment where they're wounded. We're just going to disregard this. If they had a you could have a 0+ armor save, but that would be competitively unbalanced. Because, okay, you've got to get to -3 to even make them fail a save. Terminator armor kind of should be like that. Kind of. It wouldn't work. It doesn't work terribly well as a game, but my point is, there was one with the Drukhari, and I can't remember it very well off the top of my head, but it was something like you take it for your succubus, and it meant you could never be hit on anything better than a 5+. It's like, oh, okay. And I thought, that's because they want to have it more than -1 to hit, but they've set the game mechanic as -1 to hit. It's the maximum you can have. But they want them to be hit less easily than that. So they've gone, okay, and he hit a 5+. And the first moment I saw that, I thought, yeah, that kind of works. And then I thought about it. And then I thought, do you know what? That just means that a conscript trying to hit the succubus is not in any way disadvantaged, but a Space Marine captain is 60% less likely to hit than he was before. As soon as I comprehended that, it's like, yeah, broken. It's a symptom of a system that works from a competitive point of view, but doesn't work from a narrative point of view. Grumble, grumble, grumble. I'll put my salt away now. Then again, I did pick quite a salty subject. But no vinegar. Salt, but no vinegar. Question: why did Chaos Terminator get a 5++ save? Normal Termies get it because the Shattered Armor is from the Emperor. Did the Chaos dudes get it too? I don't know if, from a narrative point of view, every suit of Terminator armor had a shard of the Emperor's armor in it when they first made it. Is it the Crux Terminatus that has? It's a good question. It's a good question because that narrative nugget, it's got a piece of the Emperor's armor in there, was that was in the era when it was sort of explaining the invulnerable save. But equally, I think there are lots of things from a Chaos point of view that they could explain by, sort of diabolic protection, or that's where my goat gets got with the Chaos side of things, because the Chaos warriors are demonstrably ancient and have a huge wealth of experience at war. I mean, Dante of the Blood Angels has 1,100 years of war experience, and he is brick-hard. Some of these guys have a lot more than that through their unnatural lives, and they are also bloated by the power of chaos. They've made deals and such. And to me, if the game were narrative-driven, I'd see a Chaos Marine basic being better than a Space Marine basic. Which obviously you can't do in this kind of game. But what I think you could do, and I have absolutely no knowledge of the Chaos Marine Codex. I haven't seen a sniff of it, so I've no idea if this is a thing or not. But you could have upgrades you could give to units that, if they'd made a pact with Tzeentch, they gained like an extra -1 on the arm, but it would make sense in that scenario. It would make narrative sense. Upgrades that tweak them. I mean, it might be infiltration. It might be deep strike through a sorceress, a deep striking power armor Marines rather than Terminator Marines because you've got a sorcerer doing a ritual. Little edges you could give the Chaos Marines that would cost more points, that would represent the fact that they are utterly ancient. Half their war gear is decrepit. That could be another thing. That could be a negative to it. And they are swollen with the power of the Dark Gods. Tonight night, Terminators have shield generators built into their armor during the heresy. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's a piece of the Emperor's armor. Well, maybe it is, but the 2 shields don't stack, so you get 5 up save twice. What? Yeah, and as Teutonic saying, can we consider the blessings of the gods? Banished Pest 1-1. 8 then made it so that everything could wound everything. A Lasgun should not be capable of destroying a land raider regardless of circumstance. Now, that's a really interesting one. I had a very interesting conversation with Winters about this a while ago. And what he postulated, and I have to say, I loved the idea, was that a Lasgun shouldn't be able to wound, say, a land raider. However, if that land raider has been damaged, it's got bits of it that are open to the sky that have been rendered through, blown up, shot through. A Lasgun should potentially be able to do damage to that land raider because its innards are exposed. And what he had in his mind was you had a red line on the damage profiles, and above the red line, you can't be damaged by weapons that are so far below your toughness. But when you get below that line, you're sufficiently damaged that anything could hurt you, and then you would have the ability to always be wounded. I love that idea. I think that means that, your Titans, your Knights can just walk through small arms fire. But as soon as they take a big hit, actually, those little scratches start to become irritating and potentially hazardous. It's like, Lord, the Prometheum lines are exposed. Pardon? That is an issue that we will need to address presently. But yes, there are lots and lots of things I love about 8th, 9th Ed. But I find myself, the more I play it, some things there's some elements of previous editions that I would like to see. I like the different range of toughness having more of an effect. I would bring it back to 4s, 5s, 6s, 6s, nothing. I would bring it back to that. I know it slows the game down because you've got to know your stats, but that isn't my prime consideration. So for me, it's not an issue. Terminators on 2d6 takes too long. Give them a d20. Give them a d12 or a d20. Adam, chat. I've got a question. It's a good one. Can you help me get to SayHiPaul? Can you help me get it to SayHiPaul? Stuff about Terminator armor. I don't play tabletop anymore, but if a new faction came out tomorrow, what space in the game mechanic could they fill? What's missing or could be added to the gaming experience? I like the notion of a large Xenos force. A force of large Xenos. So you might have 10 or 12 models in the army. Sort of maybe analogous with dreadnoughts in terms of stature and rough equivalent. I would have them being some kind of human mechanical hybrid and psychic. I think another innately psychic race that does weird stuff and that's very, very sort of dark future cyberpunk-esque. Yeah, that's what I'd go with. From a gameplay point of view, there aren't. I don't know the extent to which I count Custodes in this, but because Custodes are still appearing, there aren't many really genuinely elite armies where the models are sort of all individual and each one is powerful in its own right. Knights, are at one end of that extreme. Now, I personally don't count Custodes being at the other end of that extreme because they still come in units, and those units are roughly equivalent to the sort of some of the more powerful Space Marines. I mean, sort of like, for want of a better example, an army of like 10 dreadnoughts, but obviously not dreadnoughts, but that kind of equivalent individual models. We've had a 16-month comment from Cadfile. Bring back damage tables in some way would make armor more meaningful again. Yeah, I love the way the Tower Rail cannon can now just blast a tank apart in one go. Doesn't necessarily do it, but it can. I used to like the way you could fire a las cannon at a tank and destroy it. You can't do that anymore. It's all attrition. That's an element of the game I miss. Mechanic Centaur Psychic Race. Zotes. Nice. Catachan Fauna. Last Guns N' Roses. Catachan Fauna. Yes, a plant race. Oh, a plant race. They sort of insidious. Oh no, that's just Sylvaneth. Death World Sylvaneth with cyberware and psychic. Are too many genres? Probably. What you could do is something like Adeptus Titanicus, bring back the toughness table, so 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus, but then go above to 7 plus 8 plus the damage table. Yeah. All of which don't fit in with the streamlining for fast play. Dracha in space. How about that weird species of xenos that have like perception filters in their skin or something? If they were in a few books, I want to see them now as a faction. If you could bring things from 7th ed into 9th ed, what would it be? I could bring one thing: morale. Yep. Pre-C, previous salty ramble. Next week, we must have a salt-free subject. I need to find a salt-free subject upon which to ramble. I'm salted. I am salted. I want to be saltless. Seventh ed. I tell you, one of the things I'd bring back, I'd bring it back from 2nd ed. I would bring back strategy ratings. I loved strategy ratings. So the order in which you deployed your armies depended on your strategy rating. Like Orcs were strategy rating 2, Guard and Chaos were strategy rating 3, Eldar were 4, Marines were 5. If you had a lower strategy rating than your opponent, you deployed first. Then when it came to determining the first turn, you rolled a dice and had your strategy rating. Highest goes first. I really loved that. That was just so... Can't talk. Reading. No. Custom rules are not something I'm going to be doing. I have a couple of small house rules, but in order to... I have to keep them as close to the current version of 40k as possible, because otherwise, every slight tweak you start to make, you reduce your appeal narrows, and before you know it, you've made half a dozen changes, and only 30 people watch it, and no one else can enjoy it because you've corrected the rule set, but people just can't relate to it, and they're not interested. My shtick is more about, with a couple of small changes, using the existing rule set to play narrative games. Narrative games for the win. And on that note, I think I have exhausted the extent of my brain to ramble. I don't know that I thought that subject through before picking it, but it's definitely been an interesting one. Thank you very much for everyone for tuning in. Thank you so much to everyone who super chatted. I hope I mentioned everyone as they came along. I think I did. Thank you to all my channel members and supporters who are helping me on this crazy journey. If you want to support me, check out the description below. Channel memberships, good way of doing it. Patrons, another way. Shopping at Element Games using my links, another way. It's all good. Watching ads on my videos. I hope Crimson is feeling better soon, and fingers crossed you will join us next time. And until then, take care, everyone. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.